Caddis Maximus here again, this time with a review of the Harbor Freight Gordon versus the Harbor Freight Pittsburgh folding aluminum body utility knives. Harbor Freight actually has a few of these and a wide variety of colors, which is kind of nice. I did select the black Gordon, and I always kind of thought Gordon was the better quality than Pittsburgh, but we're going to see about that. It looks like the Pittsburghs are actually nicer than the Gordons. It's also interesting that Harbor Freight has two different brands. I wonder if one's on its way out. We are also comparing against, the Husky counterpart here, and of course, a much nicer and more recommended Milwaukee Fastback folding utility knife. Anyway, on these, they have lifetime warranty advertised on the Pittsburghs, but there is no warranty really advertised on the Gordons. I do not know if they have the same lifetime. I kind of assume they do, but I'm not 100% positive. What's also interesting is that the Gordon and the Pittsburgh aren't exactly the same design. Let's go ahead and get these packages open. We'll use my little cutter. People seem to kind of like this thing. Makes these kind of packages easy. Let's get this one open. There we go. Nice. Let's get this cleaned up here. There we go. Get these out of here. I do like, so this thing was like $5 or $6 or something for the Gordon, and it was, I believe, $10 for the set on the Pittsburghs. So let's take a little bit of a closer look. We can see that the Pittsburgh, at least a two-piece set, and they do sell the little ones individually in various different colors. The little one is just more or less a shrunk down version of the large one. So let's take a close look. I do like that they include plastic blade guards on them. The blade release mechanism is different between the small one and the large one. And the Gordon, there are actually three different designs. These are all designed to be thumb flip. We'll see if they actually close with the little plastic covers on them. We press a little button on the back, and more or less they close, not perfectly. If we pull this off, no, that just doesn't close fully. So they will close as fully as they should when they have the little plastic covers on. Of course, those will immediately get lost and thrown away, but they do recommend keeping them. Interesting, this one is a push button lock, kind of like the Milwaukee. This is interesting, the differences between these knives here. We'll take a kind of a look like this when they're closed down. This does have like a little keychain thing on it, although I'm not super fond of these. I'll pull this thing off here. These are always a little bit funky to pull off. There we go. So I do like the little one. I like that these come with little 5-piece blade sets with them, and they have these little spring-loaded, you can see the little spring down in there, dispensers, and so those dispensers can be reused. I do like those dispensers. As far as the little one, changing the blade is more of a traditional style, kind of, actually I don't even have any of those older style ones, where you take this and you flip it up, and then this part, come on now, should flip downwards. Let's not cut myself trying to do this. That flips downwards, and then you can lift the blade in and out, and they have an integrated little post there. The surface finish on this does appear to be stainless steel. I'm not entirely positive about that, but stainless steel kind of has this weird effect when you use it in manufacturing because it's a very gummy material, surprisingly enough. This design's a little funky because you do have to be careful when you're removing and installing the blade, but it does end up being pretty secure. This little one does have a thumb lock. Let's get that little safety cover back on there. Or a flip out, which I do like. So even though it's hard on the small one, actually surprisingly difficult when it's so small, you can flip it out with your thumb. And it does have some nice finger cutouts. This larger Pittsburgh is actually much easier to use with the flip. And I do like that. That's one thing the Milwaukee you can't really do, is get it open very easily with one hand. This uses the same design as the Husky. So the Husky, and I don't have a blade in it, and it looks like it's made by somebody different, but when you want to release the blade, you press this down, and this just has a little catch or a hook that hooks onto these notches on the back of the blade. This appears to be the very same system, yep. Although it is a bit stiffer, and you just pop the blade out like so. And this one they do advertise as being a stainless steel, and nice little set of instructions laser etched on it. That's a good idea. This type of system has always seemed to work pretty well. You can just push it in, it'll snap down, and since those have such deep cutouts, they do seem to hold the blades pretty well. I do like the ergonomics of this. It is much better. And then if we take a close look at these, the one inconsistency, and these aren't too bad, is they do use, actually these are very small hex cap screws, or button head screws. This larger one is actually serialized, interesting enough, and they use 3 screws to hold on the pocket. Oh, that's nice and stiff too. That is a nice stiff spring there. I like them when they're stiffer because they last a little longer and hold on a little better. But having 3 screws is pretty nice. I've actually run into a few issues where ones with 1 or 2 screws end up kind of getting loose pretty early. So overall, and there's very little blade wobble on this too, which is real nice. They got that nice and tight. This really isn't such a bad folding utility knife at all. And one other nice feature is they've beveled the corners right there so you can get into tighter spaces. That's really kind of more of a mature and well thought out product, where the older Husky here is just more squared off. Doesn't have the kind of same ergonomics. I like the texturing on these better than I do on the Husky. Let's take a closer look at the Gordon here. The Gordon is interesting because it's push button. That's the same way that the Milwaukee is. The Milwaukee is a push button lock. So you have to push this button and then you can open the blade. And when you open it up, the button snaps out. And then that button there is internal. I think you can maybe see it there where you press it in. And it just locks into the back of the blade. The Milwaukee blade's pretty tight, but there's a little bit of play. I have used this. My big criticism of this one, this is the 4822 1901, is that they use 1 screw, and this belt hook is just really weak. This wire is bent on me multiple times. I'm always bending it back. It's getting to the point of breaking. And it just, you know, you bump it and it just falls right out. And that's kind of one of my annoyances, is this wire one just doesn't work super well. It's easy to get on and off, but it also doesn't hold up very well. It does have a nice feature where they have integrated string cutter both in the blade, and when you have this folded up, you also have an integrated string cutter there in the handle. The other nice feature I like about this one is versus it does not have a thumb lever, and actually maybe, you know, on second thought I kind of like the thumb lever action better because it is both easy to replace the blades as well as easy to flip open the knife. Where on this one it does have a push button and it works very well, but it's just a little more funky to get the blade in and out, although it's not that bad. It's probably very little real world difference if we can get that locked in there. So that would just be kind of what a more considered a professional and expensive unit would be. It's like $10 or something for that. Now we'll get around to the Gordon. So the Gordon is a similar system where it has a button to lock the blade in the lock position. You have to press it, and then that same button will lock it both in a. And wow, they don't even advertise that. If we look in the back, there's 2 cutouts. It's actually really neat. So you can open it up, and you can have one position where if you're doing certain types of deep cutting operations, the blade will actually be cantered downwards in that locked position, and then you can press the button again to get it locked fully open, and you can go back and forth. That's actually pretty innovative. I like that a lot. That's gives you some extra hook angle on a variety of cuts, and I could certainly, you know, if you're cutting insulation or linoleum or a variety of things, I could see how that could help out quite well. Now, even though it does have a thumb lever, trying to hit that button and use the thumb lever is impossible. Although I suppose you can do it like this. It's not really effective. It's a little interesting that they do have the thumb lock in combination with the button lock. It makes it just a bit funky. We can see that the body is 2 halves that are screwed together rather than pegged or welded, such as on this Harbor Freight unit. There's going to be some type of rivets that they have, you know, polished so you can't see one side holding these 2 halves together. Or on this one, it's actually screwed together, kind of like the Milwaukee. What is also unique about this unit is the release mechanism is this wheel. So if we take and rotate this wheel, it has a little arrow, and so you just, and it has knurling. Oh, I see, it's spring-loaded. So you take it, pull the wheel back, if we can get it to cooperate here. Oh, that's a little funky getting in and out of there. So this has like a little wheel lock. You can't really see inside there, but that's an interesting kind of design to hold the blade in. I wonder if it's going to end up being reliable. It's a little funky getting the blade in and out. They've definitely machined it to have high tolerances in there, I'm sure, to hold the blade nice and tight. And it does hold the blade tight. But trying to get the blade out, it could rotate and give you a little bit more space. That's really the issue here. There we go. I worked the blade in and out a few times since this is brand new, and it actually does work pretty well now. So it just has some little burrs that need to be worked out, locking and relocking the blade. That is pretty easy. Versus the Milwaukee's push button on the side, I kind of like this on the top better, and that really heavy knurling on the top of the wheel, and the fact that it protrudes a little bit high, it is pretty easy just to grab it with your thumb and just pull the blade right out. That's actually working pretty smoothly now that we've kind of broken it in a little bit. So that's one innovative. The second one is this 2-position, so definitely recommending the Gordon just because of that. Also, the Gordon is definitely higher quality. We can see that it has a steel liner with aluminum side plates, where the Pittsburgh is just all aluminum. Same thing with the Milwaukee, so that's also a nice touch. And it does have a bit more weight versus the Pittsburgh, just because there is more steel in there. And we can see that they use 3 screws along the body to hold it together, where the Pittsburgh only uses 2 screws, and then they have this little pin back there. So the Gordon is obviously intended to be a higher quality unit. I'm sure it would have a lifetime warranty, even though there's some strange differences, such as there's stippling, or, you know, the grip zone, I forget what it's called, on the top of the knife. There's nothing on the bottom, where on the Pittsburgh there is no stippling or anything on the top, but there is on the bottom, and a little semicircular cutout. So they could have added that to this Gordon, and it would have made it even better. And the Pittsburgh does have a nice little finger cutouts there, so it is a little more ergonomic, a little bit less pinching than you would encounter with the Gordon, which doesn't have that. So it's kind of interesting. There's give and takes on all these products here, really. But the Gordon's definitely the higher quality unit, and certainly the one I'd recommend. This actually seems like a nice unit, and it does have indeed a very nice tight fit in there, which I do appreciate. And that 2-position thing is actually more handy than you think. Having it down at an angle like that just really makes it a lot easier to deal with. It's really pretty surprising. And I do like the solidity of the push-button block and the way it will stay locked. So if it falls or hits something and you inadvertently try to reach out and catch it, when it's in its locked closed position, you won't have to worry about it kind of falling open and accidentally cutting you. The only real difference between those and the true ergonomics is this Milwaukee. I wish these had cutouts more like this. This Milwaukee and having that really deep finger cutout is a big deal. It allows you to push very hard, to poke through stuff, allows you to great deal of pulling. And that may be part of why this one has that second position, is that since it changes the angle, you can get more effective force when you are doing a heavy pulling or drawing operation, such as cutting, interlocking laminate flooring. You know, the fake bamboo flooring like a Duralock Solid, that stuff is pretty tough to cut and really wears down blades. I'm surprised. Anyway, I think I've babbled on long enough about these Harbor Freight Gordon and the Pittsburgh locking utility knives. And ultimately, the Pittsburghs, you get a nice little one and a large one and some blades for $10, where the Gordon for around $5, you just get it and one blade. But it's obvious that the Gordon is a nicer unit. It's a heavier unit. They do use 3 screws on the belt clip, although it's not serialized, which doesn't make any sense why this is serialized, but this one isn't. And we can actually see that it is a little bit longer and a little bit larger. So there you go. The Gordon really is the more premium unit in this situation, where we're taking a closer look at it. But not by a ton, but by a significant margin, that's for sure. But as far as compared to more professional brands, It kind of has some features that I like and some features that don't quite stand up to the professional brand, especially like the line cutters that are integrated into the Milwaukee. But for $5, you can't really go wrong with the Gordon. And even versus the Home Depot Husky, both the Harbor Freight units do better than the Husky. There's a bigger thumb release than there is on the Husky. This is an older model, so they may have improved these Husky units. And the Gordon certainly is quite a bit better than the Husky. But I figured it was time to do a quick review and comparison of these guys, and of course gives me an excuse to bring out the Milwaukee again. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to the Catus Maximus channel. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.